Hey guys, Archer here, a first year medical student. Today I'm going to be going through how I managed to score a 99.95 ATAR, finished my first year of computer science at university, sat the UCAT and got accepted into 3 top Australian medical schools, ran 2 online businesses, caught up with friends throughout the year, and all the while finishing my schoolwork before going to bed at 9:30 PM. Usually. This video is broken up into these categories so you can just click on the main important points that you want to check out since your time is important as well. These topics are specifically about how I managed to get any form of work done, whether that be work for my businesses or study. Alright, let's start off with our biggest enemy, procrastination. You hear it all the time. Everyone has the same 24 hours in a day to get stuff done. In this video, I'll be explaining how you can apply these techniques within your own life. They are nifty tricks which allow you to just get even a little bit more order within your life and be able to finish those pieces of work. Now, I can't say I don't procrastinate. Actually, I can allow myself to be a great procrastinator if I allow myself to be. But what it's about is essentially just realigning my focus when I really need to. Your head knows when it should probably be working on finishing an essay or studying for a test, but then your head decides that it's time to start learning a TikTok dance. The easiest way to get around this is by setting a deadline for yourself, which creates that sense of urgency which motivates you to get that work done. Tasks at university or high school quite easily fit this principle because your teacher assigns you that deadline. However, for things like learning how to code as a side hustle, it can be a little bit harder since you end up delaying that opportunity to get that work done. Essentially, you need to convince yourself that that work needs to be done, and there are multiple ways to do that, and resources out there if you're a master procrastinator. This includes apps like Forest, which we'll get into a little bit later. Let's say you want to learn a song on guitar from start to finish, but you keep finding that you don't have the time to get the practice done. What you could do is give $100 to your friend and say to them that if I don't get this done in 1 week, then you get to keep the $100. If the money that you give them is enough to annoy you that you lost it, you're more than likely to get that work done. I haven't gone to this extreme in my life yet, but last year we had the opportunity to submit within a time bracket for an assignment, so I'd always actually end up leaving it to the last minute and submitting it just before the deadline. The way that I combated this was telling my teacher and my family, and sometimes even my classmates, that I would have it done 3 days due before the deadline. This set up an imaginary deadline in my head so that if I didn't submit it in time, I'd feel guilty for misleading people and I'd have to face the disappointment of my teacher. This strategy actually ended up working for me every single time that I tried it, so you should probably give it a shot if you find that this is something that's happening to you as well. But what about more concrete examples? Well, let's take a look at that, starting off with the Pomodoro technique. A lot of people have probably already heard of the Pomodoro technique. Essentially, it focuses on doing a short, intense burst of focus followed by a short break. Then you go back to your study, repeat the whole process again 4 times before having a longer break. This is a really good technique to use if you want to get stuff done that you don't particularly enjoy doing. I typically use this when I have a lot of repetitive work, and last year that was mostly doing maths questions in preparation for an exam. The default setup for the Pomodoro technique is 20 minutes on and 5 minutes off. But I found that when I use this myself, I'd lose focus quite a bit from all the interruptions from such a short amount of time studying. So I prolonged it to 50 minutes on and 10 minutes off. You can set all of these settings up quite quickly with apps like Forest. This worked a little bit better for me since I wasn't interrupting that focus so much, and I could get more into a place where I was more comfortable to work. In the end, it's actually really up to you what time interval works best for you, so you might want to experiment with that. I mostly used this technique when I was studying 12 hours a day for my finals last year, which is a crazy amount. And what I found with the Pomodoro technique was that I was able to not have my fatigue catch up with me so soon, and I could do more work throughout the day. Since the bursts are so short, you actually become more conscious of the time that you're spending studying. And what this also means is that time can actually start to feel a little bit slower when you're working against that clock. The main advantage of the Pomodoro technique is you can do these high intense bursts of activity. However, sometimes I found that it can be a little bit hard to get out of those zones because the timer says it's 0. All right, that's enough for the Pomodoro technique. Let's get into the next strategy that I use frequently, the flow state. The flow state is where you get into the zone, the study bubble, or that mental state where you are just consumed by your work and you are wholly focused on that one particular thing. You probably have been in it before and know what I'm talking about, and it's a great place to be to get work done. There are no distractions, this is you and the work. It doesn't just happen with studying either. It happens with anything that requires a great deal of focus, and it might require some activation energy to get started, but what you'll find is you get into the zone and then you just become one with the work and you keep working through it. This usually happens to me when I need to get something done, particularly when I have an assignment due the next morning. So really, this technique is more useful if you want to get a lot of work done in one go. The flow state finishes as soon as you start to realize that you're losing your concentration or your body starts to distract you and you realize that it's time to take a break. This actually requires you to be self-aware about what your body's telling you. I know that after 5 hours, I definitely want to stand up and get things done besides just working on my tasks. So whether that be doing some exercise or eating some more food. So the major advantage of the flow state is you're able to get in that zone and get lots of work done as long as you're not interrupted. And I'll get into that in a little bit later. With everything that I'm trying to do in optimizing my life, I always want to bring science into it and see what it has to say. Luckily, I found that this phenomenon has been investigated by neuroscientists and psychologists. Essentially what they found is that your prefrontal cortex of your brain actually starts to switch off a bit when you enter that zone. And that's what causes you to forget that sense of time. It might actually seem a little bit counterintuitive for a part of your brain to switch off, but the really good thing about it is that that allows the other parts of your brain to function a little bit better, particularly the areas known for knowledge retention. So the great thing about the flow state is you're able to get a lot of work done in one go, and then your brain will actually set itself up to retain that information a little bit better, increasing the quality of your study as well. So like I mentioned, the flow state is best used when there are no distractions around and you're not going to be interrupted, because you don't want to interject that point where you're in the zone, because it takes a lot of time to get back into that zone. All right, let's talk about the final technique I have in this video, and that is the Flow-Modoro hybrid technique. The number one technique that I've been using recently is the Flow-Modoro technique. Often when I use the Pomodoro technique, I find there's a little bit too much activation energy or friction for me to want to get into those intense work sessions. However, in most cases, I find that I just want to relax into the zone, and that's why I tend towards the flow states. However, this Flow-Modoro technique is a hybrid between the two, which allows you to get the benefit of that Zen-like state from the flow state, but also have the rightly allocated breaks which come from the Pomodoro technique. All right, let's take a look at this on my Mac. Okay, so in Notion here, I have a column which briefly describes what I've been studying in that session. Notion will actually automatically include for me the start time. And then once I'm at the end of my study session, I'm gonna include the end time. The nice thing about Notion is I can create these things called formulas, and that will automatically calculate for me the time difference between the end and the start, and that will show how long that I've been working for. The extra nice thing as well is I can actually calculate 20% of this work length, and that will be my break time. Now, the really good thing about this technique is because I can add as many columns as I want in Notion, I've got this thing called the interruptions column, and that lets me keep track of what has interrupted me in a session. And this is particularly useful in trying to diagnose what particularly is breaking me out of my flow state, which can be so hard to get into. But this is just a brief overview in it, and that's basically it. So this flow time log actually allows me to get the best of both worlds. These techniques have allowed me to get a lot of work done in the time that I've allocated to them. This video is getting really long, really quick, so I'm going to talk about some more smaller, minor time management techniques in a future video. Please like this video if the video has resonated with you or you've learned something new. And also, if you really want to see that video come out sooner, smash that like button so I know that you want to see it soon. All this stuff ultimately allows me to do other things besides study and work, and that's why I focus so much on these techniques. I believe that finding a balance is an art form, so I hope that these things discussed in the video make you just a little bit better at getting work done efficiently. All right, thanks guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.